For the next session, I would request the chairpersons to kindly come forward, Dr. Ranjit Kumar Patil, sir, and Dr. Vimla Venkatesh. I would just read out the brief about the Dr. Ranjit Kumar Patil is currently the Dean of Faculty of Dental Sciences, KGMU, and Professor and Head in Department of Oral Medicine and Radiology. He has more than 20 years of undergraduate and postgraduate teaching experience. Welcome, sir. Dr. Vimla Venkatesh is professor in Department of Microbiology, and he has done her MBBS and MD, both from AFMC Pune. I request ma'am to please introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Apul, and the entire IQAC, very, very active IQAC team for allowing us to be present here. I'm really honored to be introducing Dr. Nirmala Rege. She has been one of the pioneers in medical education. In brief about her, she's a professor in the Department of Pharmacology, Eras Medical College, and she is a professor emeritus in the Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics at the Seth GS Medical College and KM Hospital, Mumbai. Among her many professional achievements, she has done her MD and DNB and PhD in pharmacology, and she's a FAMA fellow from Philadelphia in 2015. She's the executive committee member and past president of Academy of Health Professions for Educators. And this is one of our august medical education bodies in the country. She's the advisor and past president, South Asian College, an affiliate of the American College of Clinical Pharmacology. She's a member of many expert groups, among them the UG-MEB, and she's an advisor to MEU India. She's the author of Pharmacology and Pharmacotherapeutics and Practical Pharmacology for Medical Students, and a co-editor in The Art of Teaching Medical Students, and SLOs in Pharmacology. She is the editorial board member of Medical Education and Research, Theory, Practice, Publication, and Scholarship. She has more than 125 publications in national and international journals and 22 chapters in book on research methodology, medical education, and Ayurveda. We welcome you, madam, to enlighten us on today's topic.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're perfectly audible.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. And at the outset, I thank Dr. Sonia Nityanand, Honorable Vice Chancellor of King George Medical University, and IQAC team, Dr. Apul, Dr. Rameshwari, the organizers of this wonderful national symposium, and for inviting me for that. I will be very brief in my talk, and may not require even 25 minutes. Now, as Dr. Tejinder mentioned, we in India launched the competency-based medical education in 2019 with a potential to realign our medical education with the societal expectation. We expected to improve the way the students were trained earlier. And the Indian medical graduate, as we call it as IMG, will be the end product with mastery in the stipulated competencies. And he mentioned the competencies in various competencies, which not only have the knowledge domain or the skill domain, but also the attitude, values, communication on. And now it is 5 years, and the first batch of graduates are out and subsequent batches are also running. And this is a time where we should see the problems and challenges which are faced by the major stakeholders. And why should we do that? Because it is having problems and challenging is exhausting to everyone, all the stakeholders. They are very, very stressful. And the competencies will ultimately become a list, some disorganized, inactivate, to-do list, rather than seeing the essence of those competencies. And we may not get that desired end product what we wanted, as mentioned by Dr. Tejinder. And ultimately, there will be aversion amongst the students towards the education. And that will hamper the quality of the medical education. And that's why it is important to identify, characterize, prioritize, if possible, these challenges, which may themselves then later on people can think over it, and that can provide insight into solution. And when we are not the only one who are thinking about the problems and challenging, wherever the CBME was in place world over, the challenges have been faced, and they have people have tried to overcome them. And this is in 2017 in Medical Teacher, an article was there, and which discussed these challenges in worldwide. But we will not going into the all. They have said there are 4 overarching challenges, but we will concentrate mainly on the need to establish the culture of mutual accountability for the achievement of the defined outcomes, because the rest of the things having the need to establish expected outcome, having the purposeful alignment of the medical education, delivery of healthcare, and all these things have been taken care of our regulatory body. Now, who will be the responsible for that culture of mutual accountability? So naturally, the stakeholders, and our stakeholders are the regulatory body, the policy makers, definitely the students, teachers, administrators, but as well as the patients and the community. And we have to remember that when we are thinking of the stakeholders and talking about our curriculum, there is a continuous rapid changes in the healthcare delivery system today also. And because this curriculum came in 2019, there are changing expectations of the patient, society, policy makers, and who are demanding greater value in healthcare. And there is a change cultural and behavioral patterns of patients, communities, and all the stakeholders. It's not just the patient and communities. So now if we look at the regulatory body, the erstwhile Medical Council of India and today's National Medical Commission, we have documents on the competency list. There are 3 volumes are there. We have a booklet for newer initiative, and that whatever they are displayed already at the NMC website about the early clinical exposure, foundation course, logbook, ATCOM, skill training, pandemic training modules, etc. And there are faculty development programs are also in place at regional and nodal centers of NMC to prepare the faculty for the kind of training they were to impart. And these are both the training, the trainers, the MU and curriculum committee members, as well as the other faculty members as well. And there is a support which is extended through this curriculum implementation support program, CISP. So compared to the years when I was a teacher and when I was and before that I was a student, in the recent times, that last entire decade and so, there is an unprecedented hand-holding by the regulatory body. Now, the challenge is since 2019, I've seen many articles which have come, which are giving us the Indian context, and they have mentioned number of challenges. So what I'm going to talk is not my own opinions, but there is evidence which is there in the literature. Now, this is either from the critical appraisal of the curriculum in individual subjects, or the perception studies, or the interventional studies carried out by people, or the evaluation of the educational initiatives, and also the editors. And there is a challenges are multifaceted. So more than 20 articles I could get, and there may be more. So let's talk basically about the student, teachers, and administrators, what challenges they have faced and what has been reported in the literature. So many that students, they have appreciated many initiatives, as I see from those perception studies, the EC integration skill training. But unfortunately, when CBME was introduced in 2019, from 2020, the pandemic started, and later on also, we have to decrease the phase to bring back the cycle to normalcy. the time spent in each phase was decreased. And this, at the same time, we have to remember the content was not decreased to suit the available time. And therefore, the first principle of that CBME is that responsibility of learning to be shared. And then that means the students have the equal responsibility. But in India, since our school education, rote learning is a norm. And then no one is taught from the early age to take the charge of their own learning. And when they enter the medical course or program, it becomes difficult to change immediately and start taking their own responsibility of their own learning. So because that is a voluminous content and they can't take the responsibility of their own learning, the students have found that it is stressful and time consuming, the current curriculum. This is a list of various challenges. I will not go through each and every one. Later on, I will pick up someone. I told you about the large amount of content in too little time. The timetables are very rigid and packed, and the students say there is no space for breathing. There are too many assignments, but the revision they want to do leisurely is not possible. And they do certain work without knowing the relevance and without training. And for example, reflection writing or self-directed learning, at very few places, they have been told about it and the faculty is also aware about it. And the feedback, which has been expected by the student, is many times it is not received. They find the maintenance of logbook is cumbersome. There is a lack of mentoring, and actually mentoring and feedback are the backbones of our CBME. And there is an assessment burden. Now, this assessment burden is again not our issue. And there is an article published in Academic Medicine in 2023. They have also has dealt with the assessment burden in the CBME. And the authors have taken out different themes and the sub-themes, and some of them like the disparate mental model of assessment process in CBME, the challenges of workplace-based assessment process, and the challenges of performance review and decision-making. And it was mainly for the postgraduate course where the CBME was there. But many things which I feel that they can be related to our undergraduate program. And I'm talking mainly about our undergraduate program. So there are the variable scale interpretation. We find that the performance standards which are not shared many times, they are not, as Dr. Tejinder said, it is not even criterion referenced yet. The direct observation is missing. Timeliness of the assessment completion is not there. Documentation of the performance is not there. Feedback quality, forget about the quality, feedback is not given. And monitoring of the performance or the committee who can take decision is sometimes that committee is not existing. So our students will also feel there are too many assessments. The faculty they are learning and they're trying to implement newer assessment method, but these varied methods of assessment the students are not exposed to. And there is no wrong in CBME to have multiple assessments or different kinds of assessment. That is a rule. But the students have to be trained for those. And otherwise, they feel very much challenged. And there is an article again which was published recently in 2024, which are the challenges which are faced during OSCE. So we have to take a cognizance of all these things. What is the end result? The students often not turn up for classes or they don't even undergo those assessment tests. And as someone said, the formative assessment is not given value by the students. This is actually the article which is in praise by Dr. Gitanjali, and she allowed me to use some of the things. You can see here, they have made a chart in that this is how many number of assessment, and mind you, these are not formative assessment. These are the ones which have been stipulated in our assessment booklet as internal assessment. There are terminal examination and the clinical examination in the ward, and when the student is in the particular phase, the assessment, internal assessment in the non-exam subject. So you can see the last column towards your right, and you can see that there are total assessment that varies from 33 to 29. And sometimes they occur one after the another or in a stretch of some 10 days, and the students find it very, very difficult and they don't pay attention to those assessments. Let's talk about the teachers. As I said earlier, the faculty development programs are in place since 2009. That time we started the basic course, then it became revised basic course. And then in 2014, the advanced course was started by the regulators. We have two types of faculties now. We can see two extremes. One, despite this training, the faculty are ignorant and they show apathy towards training. There is a reluctance to use the active learning strategies as expected. And maybe they are not very confident about their personal skills, their their knowledge. We don't know the reason. This is all expressed in this article, but they are not applying whatever they have learned in practice. And there is on the other extreme, there is a faculty which will attempt to apply whatever they are learned new in practice. And in that bargain, they don't train their students. They are not also sometimes very clear about what they are doing. And recently, I'm reviewing with Dr. Medha Joshi, Dr. Chinmay, the papers which are being published on educational research in India. And we have found many a times the terminologies which are used by the teachers while and still those articles have got published. That is another thing, are not proper. So there is their over enthusiasm of the faculty is also burdening the student. The teachers face n number of challenges. Though we say the responsibility is shared by the student, ultimately the entire responsibility, the brunt is borne by the teachers. And they have to handle a large number of students with limited faculty, and everyone's experience is like that. And there is a time management because there is a content duration mismatch, which I said. We teachers play a multiple roles, and those roles are now expanded in recent, like as a pharmacologist, I may have a responsibility of pharmacovigilance center. I may be a part of the MEU unit. I may be a part of a curriculum committee, or I may be involved in the family adoption program. In number of things are coming up, and we are also teaching other courses because most of the universities have physiotherapy department, pharmacy department, nursing department, and for that the basic sciences or sometimes the clinical subjects are taught by medical teachers, and there is no norm in our medical GMR that we can't teach. The medical college teachers should only teach for which they are appointed. So we are teaching the other courses, and when we are teaching the other courses, their assignments and their assessment becomes our work. Many institutions have poor infrastructure. There is a lack of material, equipment, and which are needed to support the active learning approaches. And the time spent in arranging those logistics. Take an example of small group discussion. It is very, very difficult. There is a difficulties in coordination when we are talking about the integration between different clinical departments and the patient. And there are too many assessments and assignments to mark. There is a large amount of documentation, though documentation is important, and there is a constant change of directions from the NMC. So I will take only two or three one, the class size and the student teacher ratio. The principle of CBME is the individualized learning as per the needs of the learners, but where is the time? It was a NMC and government decision to improve the doctor-patient ratio, and that's why many newer colleges have come up and the number has increased. Means in my previous college, we never asked ours is a municipal college, we never asked for the 250 students, but the day in 2009, we were assigned 250 students. And that has indirectly affected the teacher-student ratio because as per the document, we have for 250 students, 12 teachers are given. So there is a steady rise of medical colleges having 250 students, and the student teacher ratio has become 1:21. Whereas when I was a student, it was used to be 1:10. And this crowded classroom, all of you are familiar with. And the continuous movement of faculty will go to the newly established colleges. So the faculty and student interaction also suffers a lot. I already talked about the taking small group discussion, but when we have to take it for 250 students, then the energy which is spent in planning, preparing that venues, infrastructure for those lessons, and I have seen colleges having the small group discussions in a group of 75 to 150 students. So is the purpose served? The affordability, one may say that you can use the technological support and have it. There is no need to have that rooms, and you can have go online. But affordability of technological advances also to remain connected with the students, either during or after class, is also a problem. Some people are using these techniques, but it is not affordable. All the students don't stay in the college hostel. They may not have the computers at home, and there is a lack of internet connectivity. There is a talk by Dr. Farzana later on after my talk on the skill lab, but functionality of the skill labs in many institute is also a question mark. There is a room designated, there are high fidelity mannequins are there, but whether the students are using it. And ultimately what happens, there is a faculty fatigue, which leads to the disinterest in the implementation of the activities. There are challenges pertaining to curriculum. Means though I said that there is a competency list, I know we have to remember, as Dr. Tejinder said, competencies are incremental and there is a gradual honing expected. So there should be a backward planning. The exit competency are mentioned, and there should be a linkage to the competencies to the individual department and to individual lessons. And the content should be relevant to that. But that relevance is not there. I have seen for my own subject, we have prescription writing as a certifiable skill in second MBBS. So the 5 prescriptions have been mentioned for the common clinical condition. But when we were going through these volumes for the online prescribing skill course by ICMR, with the 15 rational youth medicine centers in India, everyone went through those volumes. And to our surprise, we didn't find the prescribing competency in everywhere for all for the common condition. It was not mentioned. And anyone can go through that and see it. Even in the subject like medicine, very few prescribing competencies have been mentioned. And for the surgical courses, there is a lot of stress on the skills, but not on the prescription. Surgeons prescribe, don't they prescribe? Don't they prescribe antibiotics and all? But they are not mentioned as a competency. So we don't know whether those achievement competence, when it is not mentioned, whether anyone is taking efforts. Secondly, it has been mentioned in one of the articles that family adoption program, some of the skills which are mentioned for the first year are beyond their capacity. Those competencies are not achieved in the first year. There are articles on the specific subject, community medicine, biochemistry, pharmacology, or this thing, and the problems which are identified are there is a lack in the alignment between the content what is expected as an exit competency, which are linked to the roles. There is a progressive sequencing of the competencies and their developmental markers is not seen, and performance standards are not specified. It is 50% past 60. There is a constant revision in curriculum by NMC, and maybe at times it was required, but it was very frequent, like duration of the subject, number of assessment, one paper in microbiology, then again it became 2, timing of summative examination of particular subject, duration of elective, change in the marks of requirement for passing. And so there are additions to the this curriculum before everyone settles with this new CBME. There were pandemic and they were done with good intention. There is the purpose for with which they were introduced, no one can question about it. But introduction of pandemic models, family adoption, research, yoga, that is increasing the volume. And then the documentation is also, because we have to write from the lesson plans till what we are doing in the skill lab, everything has been documented. And like everywhere for accreditation, everywhere it is a rule. What is not documented is considered as not done. But sometimes I wonder whether what is documented, whether it is done or whether it is not done. In the assessment also, Dr. Tejinder mentioned about in detail about it has to be ongoing assessment with progressive reviews, with constructive, supplemented by constructive feedback and the continuous, that we reinforce the continuous process of learning. But the family, what is a faculty perception? There is a lack of uniformity in assessment, lack of resources, the training is insufficient, and there is an assessment burden for the faculty too. There is no time to give feedback. Forget about the individual feedback. And the assessment of reflections and SDL is also not properly done. For pharmacology, I was invited for a webinar on the assessment of reflection. And to my surprise, the organizers told me, Madam, you please talk on the reflections as well also, how to write reflection, because many of the faculty members are not done. But these are the things which have been done at a basic level, course level. And the administrators, they are mainly responsible for making the program visible, providing optimal resources, and they are responsible for the effectiveness on impact of the education program. But they too face with many administrative and logistic challenges. There is a faculty shortage, the demotivated faculty, lack of resources. Many times they have to get the funding from the higher authority, from the management. There is an overcrowding in the OPDs, OTs, and labor room. There are logistic issues that hamper training. And there is a poor footfall in private institution hospitals. And the assessment, there is an examiner dropout at last moment is very, very common. And the quality of examination suffers because of that. There is a report on barriers to recruitment, onboarding, and retention faculty in Government Medical College of India. This was done under the research stream of Niti Aayog. And it has mentioned there is a faculty shortage in basic sciences, which we know like subjects like anatomy and the clinical subjects like forensic medicine or radiology. But it is a 35 to 45% shortage at assistant and associate professor level in government colleges. And faculty doesn't consider that there is a job opportunity, I should take it. They do consider many other factors. Where is the geographical location of the medical college? Whether what will be the living condition, whether my students will get good schooling, whether my wife will get a job. So all these considerations are there, and for the colleges which are at the remote places, it is very difficult to get the faculty. The transfer do occur in the government college and mainly at the time of inspection, and we have also seen it. And there is a change of job when the newer college is getting established. And the students, I mentioned this, there is an overcrowding. You can imagine 250 students per batch. That means from second year to final year, and the interns, there are 1,000 undergraduate medical students going to the OPD, wards, operation theater, labor room. And plus there are nursing, paramedical, and postgraduate students. Now, many colleges have been taking NABH accreditation, and those standards for infection control are very, very stringent. So this is infection control with so many people becomes extremely challenging, and also that will increases the financial burden. And it is not possible to permit students or interns in the expected number to enter the OTs or ICUs for direct observation. There are another problem is in the medical legal autopsy, maybe mainly faced by the private medical colleges, because students have to attend there. It is many states that don't permit medical or legal autopsies by private medical colleges, and students have to attend the government medical colleges. And government medical colleges definitely charge for the permitting this activity. The second thing is the family adoption program, the transporting large number of students to the area, then adequately supervising it. And mainly the main problem, there are many stories about this, but mainly it's that there are families who are not welcoming the students and they are not interested, because we should understand the communities have also changed. They want to know what's in it for them before they are ready to interact with the students, and they don't want the students to get interacted with them. And the time allotment for the ADCOM and pandemic modules, they are fixed. And sometimes just 1 hour is given for the introduction of the case, which is not required. And that is not left to the individual institution to decide. Everything is already prescribed. And there are bed occupancies also a problem in private medical college, because ultimately it is patient's decision. So that results in a poor footfall. The many patients opt for the free care in the government hospital. Sometimes free ambulances are also arranged and there are nexus with the corporate hospitals. And the many surgeries today are daycare procedure. In many of the specialties, you consider cataract by ophthalmology departments or many procedures in the ENT, even surgery department. And patients prefer for the OPD treatment, mainly for the pediatric patients or dermatology patients. And it is very difficult to show the real cases to all students during their tenure. It is not possible. You may not get enough in your ward. And there are difficulties in getting assessors, as I said, especially faculty in the clinical subject, because they are teaching as well as they are running their own clinics. So if they have to leave their own college and go to the another state, that will be a loss to them. They won't be able to see their patients if their exam goes for 4 or 5 days period. There are last minute dropouts, and that administrator has to hunt for that. And when you get an examiner from a last minute and with some compromises, the quality of the examination is going to be low. And already Dr. Sandeep Kadu talked about this assessment blueprinting. MEHS has done a great job, but many institutions, they don't have an assessment blueprinting. So the current CBME curriculum, from the point of view of students, faculty, and administrator, it's a highly prescriptive curriculum. Everything is over there and there is a lack of flexibility. Many times a one-size-fits-all approach is used, and then it is more focused on the process rather than the outcome quality. And we have to address ultimately these concerns and challenges. And some steps have been taken by the NMC. I have seen that whatever the recommendations we have been made in those articles, like one was someone has mentioned mentorship program should be there, and the NMC has got the mentorship program. The feedback form which we are filling after curriculum committee meeting, which will be helpful for the rapid program evaluation, which is also considered as one of the important thing in this article by Hall Etan. But one has to listen actively to to these challenges, and some expert consultation is needed for the individual institution to adhere to the new initiatives, because everyone is trying, maybe at the different level, but how we can do it in the best possible manner, that has to be as a collaborative approach, more like a dialogue and with the flexibility. It may not be possible to bring uniformity across the medical institutions in the country. We have got more than 700, Madam showed, Nityanand Madam showed 706 colleges. But every institution will have their own pace for getting adapted to the new format, which should be allowed. The progress should be watched, no doubt, but the care should be taken that there is no complete stagnation. What is most important to understand is that there should be the efforts from everyone, from the faculty, from the student, from the administrator, But the most important thing is a safe and conducive environment for interaction between college administrator and NMC. And when this is lacking, when the administrators feel whether to go and talk to the NMC authority or not, or what they will think about the college, then the whole thing collapses. And these are the references. These are the more than 20 articles. And then I found there are two interesting articles. One I mentioned by Hall, and the second is by Hopkins and Etta about what are the concerns and challenges one can get during CBME. And I think that could be useful for everyone. And I would like to express my gratitude towards Dr. Gitanjali, Dr. Kadambari, and Dr. Devdatta, because they have sent one paper for publication, which is yet to be, is still under the review process and likely to get accepted. But they allowed me to use the data which they had mentioned in their paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for that really wonderful talk. I think you very, very comprehensively covered all aspects of the challenges we are facing. I believe there are some questions online. Would you like to take them, ma'am?
Yeah.
There are no questions online. Offline, if anybody has a question. Ma'am, I think the audience has really benefited from your talk. I had just one small question for you. Do you think just one very small question. Do you think our curriculum has become too prescriptive and that is the reason we are facing these challenges?
Yeah, that is what I think. That is what I mentioned also. It is very prescriptive, and some flexibility should be given to the institution to which like I say, for the ADCOM models and the modules and the pandemic modules, the institution can plan that part, how to cover that hours which have been stipulated and which we have to show in the timetable. I really sometimes wonder whether people are using that for actually for what they have mentioned, or they are using it for some other things also. So there becomes that lack of transparency there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody has benefited from your talk. I'll ask Dr. Rameshwari to conclude the session.
Felicitate our chairpersons for this session. May I request Dr. Appal sir to felicitate our chairpersons?